Hello, my friends, welcome back. We are building the pixel art with Turtle. Prior to this, we have built a function to create a square, place it at anywhere in the XY grid, and also give it any color. And we have also seen that to create one row of, let's say, pixels or squares, it's best for us to use some kind of a loop. In fact, that loop is a for loop. But before we understand how a for loop works and how we can make it work in this scenario, it's important for us to understand this function called the range function because we are going to use that in the for loop. So I thought I'll create a separate video just to introduce this range function. Now, range function can really have three usages where we say range start stop step, range start stop, and range stop. Now, what does all this mean? Let's see this carefully. Basically, range is a built-in function in Python. What range does is to create a sequence of numbers starting at start, stopping before stop, and incrementing step. Notice here, just like we create our functions, we have inputs. So this is a built-in function. We are giving three inputs: start, stop, step. So it's going to create a sequence for us which starts at the number start, stops before the number stop, and I'll talk about this, and increments in the step given by steps. Right now, in this above, start, stop, and step must be integers. Now, this is an important point. They must be integers, which means they must be like numbers 1, 2, 3, 5, 10. They cannot be like A, B, C, right? Because, I mean, there can be a variable A which is holding an integer value. That's fine. But I cannot say range between, say, A, C with some increment E because it doesn't make sense, right? Also, interestingly, start and step are optional. Stop is mandatory, which means that we must always tell stop. We can choose not to tell start, not to tell step, and see what happens. Let's see what happens when this is done. What all this means is that there are really three ways we can call range, as I mentioned earlier. We can call it with three arguments, with two arguments, or with just one argument. Let's see some examples. Let's say I say range 3, 6, 2. Now here I'm providing start, stop, and step in this order, which means start is 3, stop is 6, and step is 2. So what that means is that I'm going to create a sequence that starts at 3, stops before 6, which means it's not going to include 6, and the step will be 2. So it will take 3, and the next number will be 3 plus 2, which is 5. It won't do 6 because 6, it has to stop before 6, and also 5 plus 2 is 7. So that goes beyond the stop number. So that's why there's no third number here. Now let's say I did instead range 3, 6. Now in this case, I'm providing only start and stop. So start is 3, stop is 6, and since I'm not providing the step, it means that I have to take step as 1. So if I do this, I'm going to get 3, 4, and 5. Again 5 because remember the counting stops before the stop number, right? So which means I'm not going to include 6, but I'm going to leave it at 5. The third usage is that I just say, for example, range 6. In this case, I have not provided start, I have not provided step, but I have provided stop. Stop, remember, is mandatory. Since I have not provided the other two, start becomes 0 by default, step becomes 1 by default, and stop is 6. Which means that my sequence created would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In fact, this is the usage we are going to use. This looks a little bit odd. I mean, you might wonder why did I start at 0? And also you might wonder why is it that I'm stopping before the stop? Why am I not including 6, for example, in this? So why am I going only 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I want you to notice a few things. Number one, that this number of numbers in this, so which means that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is in fact just this 6, right? So counting starting at 0, what that also means is that if I look at how many numbers have been created, in fact, I have created exactly these numbers. Number two, in Python, everything is indexed from 0, which means that as we'll see later, right, whether it's strings, whether it's lists, when we use range to index these constructs, it will become very easy for us because all the counting starts from 0 anyway. So the one that the one usage that we have to be very, very, very clear with, and we are going to use this in the pixel art also, is this range n. Basically, you can think of it as range stop. If I give a number n, for example, it creates a sequence of numbers starting from 0 and ending at n minus 1. So for example, if I give range 10, it's going to be 10 numbers 0, 1, 2 until 8 and then 9. Notice the first value is 0 because I did not give start. So first value is 0 by default. Last value is 9 because the stop value is not included, right? So it's 1 before the stop is stopping. Similarly, range of 20 is 0, 1, 2 until 19. So again, first value is 0, last value is 19. Now, understanding this range function is extremely important for us to understand the for loop. Otherwise, you're going to get lost in the detail, right? So please make sure you spend some time, understanding this, the way this range function works. Just before I wrap this up, right, I want to make it very, very clear to those of you who might, who may be familiar with lists and so on and so forth. Make sure you understand that range is not same as lists. So you can create a list, for example, which is 0, 1 till until 9, but that's not what a range is, right? Lists are used to store information. We are going to use lists later on in the programs, but range is just a sequence of numbers which we typically use only for iterations, right? So do not confuse range and list. Those two are different. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.